October is my absolute favorite time of the year, and to celebrate, my partner and I here exclusively watch only the bestest of the horror genre. We also love trying to tie Lego into that equation in any way that we possibly can. So over the next month, I'll be taking a look at some of the best Lego horror inclusions from one of my favorite Lego themes that ever released, Monster Fighters. Released in 2012, and some of those sets retired that same year, a couple of them made it into 2013, the line featured some of Lego's best translations of some of the most famous iconic horror characters of all time. One of Lego's own original creations, the sets took an inspiration from the Universal Monsters roster of characters. Now the line appealed to both adults and to kids. The theme's original story is that of a Dr. Rodney Rathbone who uncovers the nefarious plot from Lord Vampire, the ruler of the monster realm. He plans to turn our days into night permanently and to rule the mortal world by unleashing his monster army. To do this, Lord Vampire needs 6 Moonstones to help power a machine of his own creation. It's up to the team of Monster Fighters to stop him. Classic Lego original plotline seen in many themes before this one. If you enjoy these videos, liking and subscribing does help to support this channel in creating more videos just like this. This is set 9466, The Crazy Scientist and His Monster, which released in 2012 for 100 NZD. Nowadays, this set will set you back at around $160 or so. Not terrible, if I'm honest. I feel like I've always been saying throughout these videos that this monster right here, this is the famous monster, but really, Frankenstein and his monster is the uber famous duo, partly because I think people remember the names wrong. Frankenstein here released in 1931 with Boris Karloff crushing it in that role. There's been countless of remakes and renditions later on in life. I'm sure you have your own favorite interpretation on mind. The set overview here is essentially Frankenstein's lab and a very strange looking car. Let's start with that car. It does still fit the bill of a period piece vehicle, but it's far too out there for me personally. It can hold 2 minifigures, which is really good, but look at this inside here. It's just a single beam because a minifigure is supposed to be seated on this weird contraption here so that they can be pushed outside the vehicle. The shaping kind of reminds me of something out of an Illumination movie. There's some flick-fire missiles and some seating room up at the top on the roof, but as I mentioned, the main feature is the sliding seat. If you ask me, Rodney here is already kind of sticking out of the car anyway, so I don't really see how this is useful, really, but it's there nonetheless. So let's talk about this crazy lab, which, like most of the theme-specific sets that I really love to cover here on this channel, this isn't an idea that we see too often in Lego. I think this playset offers quite a lot of interesting things, and the sections are built on these hinges so it can all kind of slightly close up a little. We start on the far right-hand side here, which features a dungeon build. Very simple, nothing really available to do on the inside. Above it is a catapult with a couple of green bombs, assuming that this area will be manned by either the scientist or the monster if the prisoner here starts escaping. Nearby that prison wall is this chain, which is used to roleplay a prison break. I've got the Major locked up here in the prison and Rodney is here to save him. That chain just simply links onto the car and now you can save the fool. We've got this little section here of a working desk with some few items for the scientist to use. There's a skull in a jar here, classic, a wrench, a microscope, and a couple of potions. The real draw of the set is obviously the resurrection table and the tower. The mad scientist stands at the very top next to those pylons, and he stands in front of the Moonstone, yet again the stone is involved in the main play feature. The monster here lays on the bed right underneath the laser. You can rotate that wheel and make the bed move either forward or back, aligning it under the laser, and now after zapping him, can you bring him to life? The laser has a really cool sticker detail, and I like the use of the grill and wheel piece to make it look like it's makeshift. On the back of the tower we can see some plain details, but there's also a wheel right here in the very middle of the build. You can spin this wheel, which is connected to all sorts of different gears, which turns on the laser, using a light up brick that, hey, still works today. There are some other glow-in-the-dark elements here too, like some spiders and some rats. The Moonstone at the very top of the tower can also be turned around to achieve this effect. Here we have Major Quinton Steele, who is the first figure to appear twice in the series. This is the first set that offers 2 repeats of Monster Fighter figures. Here we have Major Quinton Steele. He was previously released in the Werewolf set. There's no differences made to this figure, which is a shame. Nowadays I think it's a little bit more likely that Lego would do something like a different expression, just something minor so that it at least feels as though it's a little bit unique. This is Dr. Rodney Rathbone, the leader of the crew and the final member of the team. An aristocrat from London and a talented explorer. He has a prosthetic leg, which was, at least for me, the first Lego minifigure that I had with a really cool mold like that. I loved this minifigure at release and I still do today. I love the bowler hat and his fencing sword, equipped with a revolver as well as a bonus. He helps add just a little bit of color to the team with his legs, and he released in 3 sets total with this, the hearse, and the castle. This is the crazy scientist minifigure who is an amalgamation of ideas that were already made in LEGO before. He is responsible for taking Jack McHammer's arm and using it in his creations. He uses the rubber grey tall hair that was used in the CMF series on, shockingly, a Mad Scientist minifigure, and it was also used earlier in the Agents line for Dr. Inferno. He has a different torso to the other Mad Scientist minifigures, and his expression is a bit more sinister in his tone. He actually has a double-sided expression where he's wearing his lenses now, and his smile matches that of a mad scientist. This is Frankenstein's monster. Here, obviously, he's just been labeled as Monster, but you know, LEGO would go on to make a couple of different variants of Frankenstein's monsters over the years actually, and a couple of other themes too. Before the release of this one, we already had two very special variants. This one here reuses the exact same pieces from the CMF series, so the uniqueness isn't really there for me unfortunately, but the colours are a much better design on this one than on that first one in my opinion. Looks like a really solid remake to me. I like his expression a lot and the stitching that's involved with his torso. Supposedly this guy is using McHammer's arm, so it would have been really nice to see a mix of colours like different skin tones and costume designs, but maybe it's a bit too gruesome for a kid's toy or something, but it made for a really fun Treehouse of Horror episode. Our Moonstone this time around is a green one with a white printed design of lightning on it. The instructions for this set came in two different booklets, and the booklets have different covers. The theming for this 2012 series of LEGO sets is a booklet that is covered in fog and the moon in the corner there. On both books we see advertisements for the full wave of sets, and we are just now past the halfway mark of these reviews, and then the Bob Standard Max and the Win Kids send us off at the back. I really love this set for what it is, as a love letter recreation of famous stories and movies compared to some of those other sets that we've seen. Frankenstein and his monster are synonymous with a lab. The Wolfman and the Mummy and the zombies, they can kind of go just about anywhere. So I love having a good lab build for some characters in movies that I really love. However, it is worth noting the dated releases of these sets. These released in June 2012 and they retired around December of that same time. Some of them did push over into 2013 though. The CMF series that had released before this was Series 4. I don't know what it's like worldwide, but these figures are still easily bought second hand definitely for around the same price as retail within at least a year of their retirement. And I mention this because a very good Frankenstein and his monster figure released during that same CMF series, and both Rodney Rathbone and Quinton Steele released in other sets that were cheaper than this price. If you weren't too picky on these designs, then you could get your hands on two very good substitutes for Frankenstein and his monster for about $10 each instead of paying $100 for this. Using that leftover cash, you could go and get the Hearse set for $50 and the Werewolf set for $40. You've now spent $100 in 2012 for 7 minifigures instead of 4, and you've received 2 separate sets as well. Just, you know, food for thought. If you enjoyed this review and you want to see some more Monster Fighters videos, liking and subscribing does help to support this channel. Ka kite anō.